With multiple rookies shining during the preseason, the Vancouver Canucks have a tough decision to make with who makes the starting night lineup. We're going to break down this, PTO cuts, and more later on this episode. Before I start, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone that is subscribed. I was going through and looking at where everyone was from watching this, so if you want to go down and leave a comment on where you're watching from, how you became a Canucks fan, anything like that, make sure to go put that in the comments. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Canucks release a PTO. Now, the Canucks did make some PTO signings going into preseason, and we seen yesterday, if you're watching this today, that General Manager Patrik Allvin announced that Sammy Blais has been released from his PTO. Now, the biggest thing with this, and a lot of people were looking at this saying Sammy Blais gone from the organization, not that big of a deal, but the biggest thing is they still have him. Sammy Blais is going to be playing with the Abbotsford Canucks, adding a much-needed veteran presence to this young Abbotsford team. And the biggest thing with Sammy is you go through, he has been around for quite some time, and he also has a Stanley Cup. Looking back at 2018-19 when he did win the Cup, only putting up 4 points in 32 games, going in and playing 15 playoff games. You can work your way through and see that Sammy Blais has been a guy that can put up roughly 15 to 20 points. He's a veteran guy that can join this Abbotsford team, like I said, with a young Abbotsford group, just being 28 years old. I'm not saying he's a veteran in his 30s, but experience in the NHL to join these young guys, to help them develop. Guys like Jonathan Leckmerky, Arshdeep Bains, there's so many guys that could be on Abbotsford this year, and having a guy like Sammy Blais to mentor these guys, to help with these guys, and he can still be signed to a full NHL contract later in the season if Patrik Allvin sees any development, if they see him shine anymore. Maybe he comes out and destroys Abbotsford and then the AHL, and you see him make this jump to the NHL. But as of right now, Sammy Blais was released from his PTO. He will be joining Abbotsford to start this season, and he is a nice piece that the Canucks could call up once they sign him to an NHL contract to help with maybe a playoff run or if any injuries happen. But what are you guys' thoughts on Sammy Blais? Do you think he might be able to turn things around in Abbotsford, dominate the AHL like I said, and get signed to an NHL contract? Or would you rather leave him down there to mentor these young prospects that the Canucks do have? But talking on prospects, we'll hop straight into the second topic, which is the Canucks have a tough decision. Now, the biggest thing with this is we've seen so many guys shine with the Canucks during this preseason. Jonathan Leckmerky is a guy I can't stop talking about, and someone a lot of people in the comments can't stop talking about is Ratu. We see a guy like Casket Brain say, I'm all for Leckmerky, but Ratu seems ready for the jump to the big team as well, with 15 likes on this comment. So you guys like Ratu, I love Ratu, let's talk about Ratu. Ratu is a guy that came in, was traded for in the Bo Horvat trade. It was him and I believe a first or a second round pick. We've seen Ratu, just at 21 years old, spent majority of his career with Abbotsford Canucks. We do see 3 games with the Canucks last season, putting up 1 assist and 1 pointer in that span, and you can see he had 12 games with the New York Islanders back in 22-23. Now, the biggest thing with Ratu is he's a center and he adds a lot of depth. He's a left-handed shot. Yes, I know I said right-handed shot in the last video by mistake, but Ratu is a left-handed shot center from Finland, and as I said, only 21 years old. The biggest thing with Ratu most of the past few seasons was his skating, but we've seen the skating look a little bit better this past preseason, and he's been looking like one of the standout players that hasn't been on the Canucks roster that's really making a push. I mean, when you're looking at a guy like Ratu, as I said, just 21 years old, he is going into the final year of his entry-level contract. He will be 22 at the end of this. They do have the RFA rights, so they can still sign Ratu, and they have his rights. It's not like they're going to lose him unless someone offers him a $5 million qualifying offer, which I can't see anyone doing. But getting Ratu onto this team, seeing what it's worth, the Canucks might look at this as a, hey, we know what you can do with Abbotsford. We know what you can do in the AHL. You're on the end of your contract. You're an RFA. We want to see how you can play with the big club. Now, looking at the roster, as I said, this is from Daily Faceoffs. This changes constantly, but this is what they're projecting the lineup to be for the next game for the start of the season. Danton Hyman, JT Miller, and Brock Boeser. We see the second line of Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, and Jonathan Leckmerky, who has been dominating and looks great during the preseason, which is actually their leading scorer as well. You work your way down to the third line, Höglander, Bluger, and Garland, followed by Sherwood, Suter, and Sprong. Now, the biggest thing with this is if a guy like Jonathan Lekkerimäki isn't looking 100% ready, if he's looking like maybe he needs some development time, he spent most of his career with European hockey, so having him jump straight to the NHL after only a few games in Abbotsford might be hard to let him adjust to the North American ice, even though he's looked pretty darn good on this ice already. But if he's looking like someone that can't really get into this, maybe we see a little bit of a line change. Maybe we see a guy like Aatu Räty come in, get into this fourth line center spot, get into this third line center spot. It gives you the room to make some jumps. You can promote a guy like Daniel Sprong up to the second line. Keep that third line of a guy like Höglander, a guy like Aatu Räty, and someone like Connor Garland to just have an energy line, to have this line be able to go out with grit, with grind. Have a guy like Räty playing with two guys that can skate, score, and everything in between. I think this is the perfect test for a guy like Räty. Getting him in this lineup, having a guy ready to play with him like Connor Garland, while Dakota Joshua's out. The biggest thing with this as well, a guy like Teddy Bluger, who is going to be a UFA, I believe it is early as next season, getting some reps for a guy like Räty, having someone that's ready to replace a guy like Bluger if he does walk into free agency is another big part of this. Now, I do think they have a lot of tough choices. I mean, you're looking just at the Abbotsford roster. You have guys like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Max Sassons. You can work your way down this list slowly. Josh Bloom's a guy that looked good during the junior championships. You're looking at a guy like Aatu Räty, who's looked outstanding. Arshdeep Bains, PDG. There's so many guys, including Linus Karlsson. You even have guys like Amon, who's not on this list, that could make this Abbotsford's team and make the push to make the Canucks roster. I think the biggest thing with getting Räty in this lineup is the fact that Amon is on this team currently. We've seen Amon play a lot last year, so pushing him down, not getting the minutes over a guy like Räty might cause some bad blood, but you could also put Amon down, let him get his footing again, let him dominate the AHL, bring him up once Räty is ready to go back to the AHL. Maybe Räty stays up for 5 games, maybe Räty stays up for 50. Who really knows? The Canucks do have a tough decision to make. Looking at this list, as I said, the top 3 guys, in my opinion, to come up and make the team would be Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Räty, or a guy like Josh Bloom. You can work your way down. Arshdeep Bains probably over Josh Bloom the more I'm looking at it. But overall, the Canucks have so many prospects on this team waiting to make the jump to the NHL. Who do you guys want to see take that roster spot over? I know right now we see a complete roster spot here, but with Jonathan Lekkerimäki there, the prospect pool could make the jump. Let me know down in the comments who you guys would want in this lineup, and talking about comments, we'll hop in everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. Comment today comes from Christopher, and he says Räty and Lekkerimäki should stay. And listen, Christopher, couldn't agree more. I think 2 of these guys have looked outstanding. Getting them in for a few games is not going to hurt their development. I think it's just going to make them hungrier to make this team. You have that open spot. Why not test them out for a couple games each? But what's your guys' thoughts on everything I talked about? If you want to go down and leave a comment, you could be like Christopher today and be comment of the day. Way down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back today or tomorrow with another episode, so keep your eyes out for that. But I've been your host, Mark Bye, and take care.